Hello, and welcome to Chaos to Clarity, the podcast that's your compass to navigate the exciting world of service-based businesses. If you're a determined woman in your current business adventure, striving to conquer the chaos and build your empire, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Maggie, your go-to business bestie and chaos navigator. I've spent nearly 2 decades in the service-based industry, building a photography business, a yoga studio, and now a thriving coaching practice. I've cracked the code to consistent income without all the chaos and noise. So get ready to increase your business growth, connect with your ideal clients, and find ease in both business and in life. It's time to turn your frustrations into inspiration and your chaos into clarity. So go ahead and grab your coffee, a pen and paper, and let's dive into the journey of building your dream service-based business together. Are you ready? Let's go. All right, here we go. Welcome back, everyone, to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie, your business bestie and Chaos to Clarity coach. Today with me, I have Amy Lewis, and I am so excited to have Amy on the podcast. So I'm going to let her explain exactly what she does. So Amy, let us know who you are, who you serve, and kind of what you do, and then how long you've been in business.
Great questions. So this is really exciting to be here today. So thank you first and foremost for having me. As Maggie, I am Amy Lewis, and I typically work with women over 40 or almost 40. And what I do is I empower them to get and stay strong for life in body, mind, and spirit with simple, effective success habits. So say goodbye to overwhelm, say goodbye to confusion, say goodbye to hours in the gym or the kitchen. And really, I help them to develop lifelong habits, right? It's not a quick fix, but I help them develop lifelong habits to have the confidence to create a life that they absolutely adore. So it's really exciting. I love what I do. I get to empower others to live their best lives. And I do that through a foundation of health and fitness.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's so awesome. I love that so much. And I think that's so important, right? Like you get to this like middle age. I said to one of my friends the other day, I'm like, we are middle-aged, and that feels weird to say, right? Like, so you get to this like middle age of like, okay, what what once worked when I was 25, 30, 35 no longer works, right? When you're thinking about food and just like feeling your best self, right? That doesn't work anymore. And there's so many shifts and changes. So it's so awesome that, someone like you is around and available for women who are starting to feel those shifts and changes to really connect with and, figure out what is happening and so that they can feel their best self.
100%. And it's really interesting because you asked, how long have I been doing this? And so I am 53. So for probably about half my life, right? So, and I was moonlighting when I first started, did it for my own health and fitness reasons. But the interesting thing is I always worked with this population. And because, when I was young, there were a lot of guys who were, meathead sort of trainers, great guys, but they didn't want to work with these people.
Right.
So I got people coming off of rehab, all of the people who were aging. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I was young, I didn't experience it yet, but at least I really felt that that was a blessing to have been working with these women. And I did work with a few good men also.
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy say, "What about 5 men over 50? Can you work with them?" Absolutely. And what is really coming to my mind, I had a great conversation at the end of last week with a mentor that I absolutely love, who has been in my life for about 5 or 6 years. And he's just absolutely, he's really about doing the impossible. Nothing is impossible. Like you said, there's always a way.
Mm-hmm.
So we were sort of brainstorming about thought leadership, and what came out of it was, and I absolutely love this, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. What if 40 was the new 40? Like, what if we stopped trying to be 20? What if we embraced this time period and said, I'm going to make the rest of my life, the best of my life? What if we stopped believing that it's all downhill? So that's sort of what we see, because all of our media is geared towards, it seems like your 30s are like the best of your life. And it doesn't have to be that way. Every stage can be amazing as long as we honor the changes and the seasons of life. So I love that. Like, what if 40 was the new 40? What if 50 was the new 50? What if I'm not trying? There are wonderful things that I absolutely love about being in my 50s. And yeah, I have goosebumps. I'm like, so it's what if we switch that mindset to, okay, I don't, yeah, I'm not 20 anymore. I have different goals. I have different needs. I need my vehicle, my body, my mind for
Right.
different things then. And so really being empowered to embrace our age, our bodies, and then support ourselves going forward. So
Yeah.
it's really exciting to shift that thinking. And then, I wish I could share a picture with you. I ran into a client over the weekend and she's just glowing and it's just so rewarding. She's the same age I am. And it was beautiful, but we were both up
Yeah.
at the mountain. She's just glowing. She's like, I feel so great. It's all because of you, but she did the work. So
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. We do kind of feel like aliens in our body. We sort of go through this. We don't think it's going to happen to us. And then what the heck is happening? There, it's common, but not normal. That's
Right.
what I tell. Don't have to feel that way.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I really love that thought of like, what if the best parts of your life are like continually happening, right? How can you make the rest of your life the best life? And like, I think back and, I've had people ask me, oh, what would you give to be 25 again? I'm like, no, no, I actually really love the age that I am. And I love getting older. I love, right? Like, I love stepping into new knowledge, into new, like, different pieces of my life. And, like with kids, like seeing them grow and watching them just learn more and more, right? Like, and I have opportunities to learn more and more about them, about myself, right? About my husband. So I think I love that, that thought of like, don't be paralyzed by what's happening right now, right? Like, or don't wish for the past. The past is the past, and it's done and over. So how can you make right now the best, the best that it can be? We have an extra
Yeah.
guest today.
Hi, super
uh,
friendly. So good to see
yeah.
you. And I agree with you because honestly, it's interesting. Over the weekend, I was saying to my husband, that my kids are 20 and 16. Our daughter is
Mm-hmm.
on vacation this week, but she left last night for a few days with friends and she has her license now. So they're just not home.
Right.
And I was saying to him, there are some things I would have liked to have done different. And I like to think of it, I like to think about those things so that, like you said, what can I learn? Is there something, can I approach something with more compassion now? Like instead of,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, time is linear, you can't go back. There's no use in being upset. And I wasn't feeling upset. I was more like, huh, isn't that interesting? Like I could see why people like being grandparents. I could see what, like, or I go to the grocery store, right? And I see somebody with little kids and I want to just be like, do you want me to just like hang with your kid while you run around the store? Because I
Right.
don't have that pressure, right? You want to be a good parent, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But you get to another stage, right? So I know that I felt like, oh, I wanted to do the right things with my kids. So there was more, and you're in it, right? So there's more
Mm-hmm.
stress. So there now that I look back and say, can I help? Because I do have experience. I agree with you. Like I don't wish my kids were younger. I do have heart palpitations at times. They're move out soon. My
Right.
son's
Right.
going out west. But what if you could make the rest of your life the best of your life? What if you could just commit to that and then empower yourself to make the best choices? Now, I just said to
Yeah.
my son, sometimes you have to make the best worst choice, right? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it is that you have things in front of you and nothing looks good to you, but we've got
Right.
to make the best worst choice, right? So maybe you're out and you didn't prep your food and now you're thrown into like party and barbecues and there's tons of stuff everywhere and you have to really, if you want to, either have a cheat meal or take the time to really walk around and see, what can I do, what is going to be
Mm-hmm.
the best worst choice here, and there usually is something, right? So it's just really empowering women to say yes to themselves, to say
Mm-hmm.
I'm, because I'm here and I am making these choices for me. And so I really do get fired up about it because I think our whole lives, I notice myself too, everything will be going well. And so I still have this sort of like, I have to be really mindful of like not sabotaging So if
Right.
everything else is going well, I might eat some junk, right? So now I'm like really aware of it. I'm like, why are you eating that? You're going to feel like crap.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because everything else is going well. You're allowed to have everything go well in your life. So really
Right.
embrace that. So I love that that resonated because I don't know. I'm tired of, I don't want to be 20. Like, I'm not saying that wouldn't it be great to have this knowledge, but I'm not looking to go backward. I want to go
Mm-hmm.
forward. And as Dr. Gundry says, die young at an old age, you
Yeah.
know, right?
Yep.
Like have the energy, have the clarity of mind, have the clarity of thought and speech so we can relate to others, have
Mm-hmm.
peace in our hearts so that we can come with compassion. And that comes with a foundation of self-care, including, our health, our nutrition, our fitness. That's really the foundation. Otherwise, our message is we can't think straight. We're angered much more quickly. We don't sleep well. We're not
Mm-hmm.
drinking enough water. It's just all cascade. So instead of somebody asked me yesterday, well, how do I start if I'm even overwhelmed by 5 habits? Well, let's pick one, right? Are
Right.
you drinking water something you could do? Would you prefer to start with 5 minutes of breathing when you first wake up and before you get out of bed? Do you want to commit to walking your dog a couple times a day to get movement? Like, what can you commit to this week? One thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
One thing. You don't have to do
Right.
it all.
Yeah. And I
It's a
think, like what you bring up there with the like, what's one thing, right? We get so hyper focused on, I have to change it all. And I have to change it all right now when like that's not how these changes occur, right? I work a lot with mindset, with people with mindset. And, right now with the economy the way it is, right? Everyone is focused on money and like how can I money, 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 money. And like okay, that's great, but how can I make the best one choice that is going to shift me even if it's 1 degree, right? Towards that like okay, maybe I'm going to get rid of these garbage thoughts of like there's not enough money. Every time that comes up, just remind myself people are buying things every single day, right? So and making those small tiny shifts. So like maybe yeah, it is getting up and taking 5 minutes to breathe or meditate or whatever, right? That quiet time, or taking a 10-minute walk with your dog every day this week. And if it turns into more, great, but 10 minutes, right? Like, and not having it be this like, oh my gosh, I have to have this crazy goal of I don't know, 60-minute workouts, 7 days a week, right? Like it's just so not
exactly.
where you're setting the bar so high for yourself that of course you're not going to reach that bar when it's that high, right? So it's okay to
Yeah.
bring the bar down and work your way up, right? Like I think people forget that step. They see all this stuff and they're like, okay, I'm going to go get this, whether that's fitness or financial or building a business or whatever that is. They see it and they're like, okay, I'm good. I'm just going to do that thing. But they forget that like you got to take the action steps, the little baby steps, right?
Exactly.
My baby didn't learn to walk in 2 steps, right? Like he stood up, he fell down. He stood up, he fell down. Like break it down to being that simple. And I think that's where sometimes we get lost, especially as women. I feel like we automatically think, oh, I need to be the best at everything right out of the gate.
Right. We forget, and that's a great analogy with kids. We forget that it takes time, right? It's 10,000 hours
Mm-hmm.
to mastery. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you don't get results along the way. A lot of my clients get incredible results right out of the gate. And it's
Mm-hmm.
designed, right? And we want our clients to get quick wins. Interestingly, they are my clients, and this isn't just the way it goes for everyone, but a lot of my clients will be, they'll stick to the plan, they'll do it all for the first couple of months, and then they find like in month 3 maybe that they are falling back because remember, on a cellular level there's still that other person that was
Mm-hmm.
not fueling their body right. That so really, if you want to get a little bit into quantum physics, we are still that same person. So we're reorganizing. It's just like you're saying with the money mindset. So what I've been doing, which is again, I want to give credit where credit is due, something I learned from Joe Dispenza. When I have these thoughts coming up, whether it's around money or my business, that is not serving me. That's an old thought. As soon as I notice it, I just say change. I don't try to convince
Mm-hmm.
myself because it's a great thing. If I can look at, I live right outside of Killington, Vermont. So even all through the pandemic, I was like, wow, there's no shortage of money.
Yep.
It's COVID crowded. People are spending $200, close to $200 a day on lift tickets. Most of these people have second and third homes here. So I was doing all of that and really looking for that evidence of abundance, even in things like I keep looking out my window. I live in the woods. So there's an abundance
Mm-hmm.
of trees and sunshine. And, I was always looking for that. And what's been helpful to me lately is just to remind myself to change, right? So if I'm like, oh my God, I need to start a podcast now and I need to know it all and I need to start the interviews today and drop everything else, then yeah, that's not sustainable. So that's a really good point that you bring up because in our insta world, we're
Mm-hmm.
so used to this instant gratification. And this has been going on for a really, really long time. So what we want to remember is, yes, I'm going to teach you 5 simple, effective success habits that are going to get you where you want to go. Yes, there are other tools that you're going to use.
Right.
Yet when you're starting, I had a client who started 2 weeks ago. She is getting up. And again, I had spoken with another Our League member who shared the early part of her fitness journey. And this client is somebody I'd worked with years ago. And I said to her, can you get up, set your alarm to get up off your couch once an hour for 5 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
And in that 5 minutes, walk to your sink, get more water, walk around your apartment a few times, for however long, for 5 minutes, however long it takes you, sit back down, and then for the remainder of the hour, drink your water. And
Mm-hmm.
then that, right? So she was doing 2 things. She's moving and she's drinking water. Well, those 2 things in one day, she had more energy and she slept better. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's the simplicity of, she was getting overwhelmed because she can't do strength training. She can't do cardio. She can't do the
Mm-hmm.
things that we need to do. She used to, and she will
Right.
again. Right. But so it's what you're saying. Sometimes we think things are so complicated and it's really keep it simple, sister. And
Mm-hmm.
then finding the support and help, whether it is a free resource that you stick with or you go ahead and say, I'm worth it and I'm ready to invest in myself and I'm going to do my due diligence and I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to learn how to research the right program for me, not get stuck in research, but not blame the wrong coach because I didn't do due diligence. And I just have to throw that out there with all the mess that's going on in the coaching world these days. I do want
Mm-hmm.
to encourage people to take responsibility. Stop
Yeah.
getting duped because you're not. Sometimes, I mean, I've been there too, and I have felt duped. And I sometimes look back and say, okay, was there something else I could have taken responsibility for? Was this was this my learning curve so that I'm sure I'm treating my clients like I don't know. Like I look for learning. But what I do want to encourage those of you that are listening is to take responsibility, whether you're looking to improve your finances, your relationships, number one, your relationship with yourself, which is going to come from your health and fitness. Take responsibility for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody can do
Right.
it for you. You can pay as much money or as little money as you want. You still need to do the work. And when you do make that investment in yourself, do yourself a favor. Don't throw the money away. Have the confidence to say, I don't understand. And if it's true that you were sold something different than what is being delivered, have the confidence to say, this was my understanding. This is the contract I signed. I'm a little bit unclear. And maybe it's like Maggie and I are chatting about right now, Maggie, that it's simply we don't understand what the steps are to build the foundation. And that's
Yep.
exactly why we hired somebody. And we didn't
Mm-hmm.
expect to have to do this hard thing over here. And we don't really want to do the hard thing, but we really want the end result. So we're going to trust the person we hired and
Yep.
what they're telling us. So it's really the personal responsibility is what is the foundation of what's going to empower you,
Yeah.
right? No matter what your goals are, keeping it simple is
Mm-hmm.
going to empower you. And then really opening yourself when you do hire someone to be coachable, to be teachable, and to lean in for that support so that you're not,
Right.
throwing your money away. It's just a
Right.
really important piece that I think is not, I am feeling moved to bring it more to the forefront of the conversation.
Yeah. And I think it's such an important reminder and such a huge shift, right? When you take responsibility for what is quote unquote happening to you, right? When you maybe are in like I recently left a coaching relationship that I had been part of for a very long time. And I am not upset. I am right. Like it came to a point where I was like, you know what? I had to have a hard conversation with myself, is this what I really want to be doing and learning and taking in? Um, or is there something better that I'm feeling called and pulled towards? And for me, it was the latter, right? It was I don't feel fulfilled with this relationship. It's coming to an end. Now is a great point for me to, right, to navigate to something new. And it's no hard feelings against that coach, right? Like it got to a point where I was like, I have outgrown this relationship. And thank you so much for what you've taught me, for what I've learned, what I've been, like things I've realized and all of that stuff. But it's time for me to step in this other direction. And, like, so I think sometimes we forget that when we take responsibility for that stuff, it takes a lot of the, I guess, weird emotions out of it, right? It takes a lot of that, like, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, right? Like it ultimately comes down to what's best for me right now.
Mm.
And one of my friends all the time, she says, well, does it check for you, right? Like, is that something that, like, if you listen to your gut, does that check with your gut? So, like, do you get that gut response of like, yes, or gut response of no, or like, well, however you make decisions, right? And I
Right.
think like when you can tap into that and know that, like, within you are making the right choices to move forward, I think that it's so powerful, right? Because then you are aligned, and I feel like so much more will come into alignment as you move forward then, right? Whether that's business opportunities, money, love, kids, what, like, obviously there's nuances to all those things, but like you're moving in that direction that you are creating exactly what you want.
100%. And I think the really pertinent point of we want it now, of course we do. But we
Right.
also know that we didn't get where we are overnight, right? So that is oftentimes for women that I work with, controlling, and I don't mean controlling in a bad way, but making good choices for
Mm-hmm.
what they put into on and around their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
That is what you can control. You can control
Yes.
your choices. You can control whether or not you move your body. You can
Mm-hmm.
control whether or not you choose when you feel stressed to breathe. Because right now, if you're bunged up and you're overwhelmed, and you're not going to get those intuitive hits. So
Right.
that's exactly why when we say, okay, if you're feeling out of control, let's start with what you can control, which is you, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
control. And again, we have to learn. I had to unlearn a lot of emotional like reactions that
Yep.
just were they were ingrained, right? They were part of that old me on that cellular level that my body just knew when this happens, we do this. And
Right.
so we have to sort of be aware of like, wait a minute, I don't have to do this all the time. I can make a choice. So that can be scary, and it can be that alone can be overwhelming. Yet again, when I do work with, and I really, again, I'm looking to refer out business clients, but when I do work, of course, I just interrupted myself and forgot what I was going to say um, about checking in with yourself. It was something about that. But even when I work with business clients, we start with that foundational piece. I always did. Like that
Mm-hmm.
first piece is always them, identify what they want and why, and then coming back. Because the thing is, if you build a business, a relationship, a life around hustle and grind that doesn't include caring for you, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what stage of life that you're at, you don't miraculously get where you want to go and everything poof changes to this, you know, place. If you're building from a place where you have no time for you will have no time for you ongoing. So as you said
Mm-hmm.
earlier, you want to build this in a sustainable way. So that's why you may do one small habit. Like in our league that we're in together, Sydney said, "Can you make one connection this week? Can you follow up with one person?" So
Mm-hmm.
again, when you're ready to scale and grow your business, you're going to do more than that. Yet in a year, if you made 52 new connections, you
Right.
furthered 52 relationships, probably plus, because you're not going to help but be able to ripple out,
Right.
right? You created one program that you focused on for 52 weeks of the year, and again, there were a couple of other things. What do you think would happen? Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
maybe this week you just focus on building one new connection. And next week you do one connection and one follow up. And the
Right.
next week you do one connection, one follow up, and
Right.
you work on your program. And so this is the same thing. What if this week we focus on drinking 7 to 8 glasses of water, or we can do the math on for you personally, right? It's half your body weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in the US. So, if you're 150 pounds, you need 75 ounces of water a day. It's that simple. You want to look at your water bottle and say, okay, how many times do I need to fill this up, and focus on that? If you're drinking no water, can you drink any water today? And
Right.
maybe by the week be up to 75 ounces, or maybe at the end of 2 weeks, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, 75 ounces would be great, but you're going to be uncomfortable because you're not used to drinking water. And if that's going to make you stop because you have to run to the bathroom every 2 seconds, start where you are with what you can with your goal. That by the end of the week, my goal is to be at 75 ounces. Now, if at the end of the week you're at 60 ounces, it's a win from zero.
Yep.
So, can I get to 75 ounces by Monday? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I'm very strategic and specific, and I do provide my clients with everything they need. But then we look and say, okay, what's doable that's going to be sustainable for you? And everyone's different. And I think it's the same way for business. And when you do these things where you can really relax, is really what I'm getting at.
Right.
When you're making these big changes, instead of having this real nervous energy, you can get excited because you don't have to do all the things and figure out how you're going to fit everything in.
Yep.
You have to do one, you don't have to do anything actually, but you can
Right.
do one new thing a week.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, like as from a business building standpoint, right? Like sometimes it's like only one, I have a million things to do. But you're so right. When you break it down of like, okay, if you're going to make one new connection every week of the year, that's 52 people. That's so many people, right? Like, and if you're a coach listening to this, no matter what coaching niche you're in, 52 people, that would overflow your calendar, right? That would overflow your books to the point where you would be like, oh my gosh, I have so much abundance, right? Like, so I think, sometimes the power of those small activities, those small things, and even if it is drinking water, right? Like going from no water to 50 ounces, like that's a win, right? Like, and then,
Yeah.
like stepping that up 50 to 75, even 75 to 100, right? Whatever that is in there, like celebrating those small wins and knowing that, again, you're taking the steps forward to move yourself to be more in alignment, to be more you, right? Like the more you can be, the easier it is to do everything else on the outside, right? Like when you're like in alignment with yourself on the inside, all the outside stuff, whether it's chaos or whether it's clarity, right? Like it doesn't feel as crazy, right?
Right.
Like, and I've had a lot of people ask me like, "Oh, how do you like sometimes the kids are home with me, right? Like today, they're home with me." And people are like, "How do you do that? I could never." And I'm like, "Well, you just got to make it work, right? Like I got to figure it out. Can I rearrange my schedule so I do things when they're not at home? Yeah, absolutely. But I also want to empower them to see like, oh, this is mom's working time. Okay, she's got these things to do. I know we're going to play, but also that like now they get to see me doing business, right? They get to see me being an entrepreneur. And like, if they want to do that someday, right? Like, I want to empower them to do that. I want them to know that, like, yeah, if you want to work in corporate, great. If you want to go to college, great. Tech school, whatever. You want to start a business, I'm here for it. Like, I'm here to help you do whatever your little heart desires. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
like, there's so much power in that. And, to go back to like the coaching industry, like what attracted me to it was that like I can help people step into these things that they're so excited about. And they're like, oh my gosh, I get to do this, right? Like I get to show up every day for this thing. And holy cow, right? Like that makes me so excited to help them grow. And I think that is like, it's such a cool thing about the coaching industry is that like I get to do things like this, right? Like host a podcast. I get to have these conversations with women who are like, I've got this problem and I don't know how to solve it, right? And like, okay, let's talk through it. What's going on, right? And break it down. And like, knowing I get to do that, like, I'm so excited to show up at my computer, right? To show up for work every day. So all the chaos, like, it doesn't matter anymore, right? It doesn't feel as chaotic. And I think that is such a cool thing to lean into.
That's awesome. And I think also realizing that there, just like there's seasons of life, there the days, right? Some of it's going to feel like chaos, and there can be clarity inside of that chaos. And I do,
Mm-hmm.
seeing where my kids are at, they're very, very different. I am glad that I was home. There were times I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm working, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, to see what my kids are now doing at 20 and 16, I can see. And we spent the weekend, it was like we spent the weekend with friends. So it was a very, very social weekend. Yesterday I had to stay home. I was like, I can't take it. But it was really wonderful. We're very, very blessed. And we got a lot of compliments on our kids. Our kids are, they're not with us that much, but the mountain community is pretty close knit, and everyone. And they, just to see here, my kids always stop and talk to people. We raised them that age didn't matter. And how to communicate with different people, but to see they're both going in such different directions. And it's simple. It's not to say they don't have hardships. They should. You've got to go through
Sure.
challenges. But to now see what they're doing, my son is going completely unconventional, which is what my husband and I have done with our lives. And my daughter's going a little more conventional, but her motivational, but unconventional within conventional. She's going into nursing. She's going to
Yeah.
sit for her LNA next year. She'll be 17. So
Wow.
it's incredible that you don't realize the ripple effect. And that's another thing that drives me is when I work with women one-on-one, it ripples out. It ripples out to, like,
Mm-hmm.
one of my clients said to me last, she was going to Disney this week. It's our vacation week here in Vermont, for spring break for the kids. And
Yep.
she was going to Disney. And so one of the things that she said was a win that was different was she was thinking about how they were going to be in close quarters. And she tends to say things that we tend to say as parents, that we are always like, like, I paid so much money for this trip. You're at, da, da, da. And she was sharing this with me, and I had to laugh because I have, had been guilty in my life and had to be like, change, I've had to be like, no, you're just upset right now. So that was a huge win, that she was thinking about that before she ever left home. And
Mm-hmm.
that ripple effect means that their Disney trip is going to be so different than any trip they've ever taken.
Yeah.
She was prepping and planning ahead, looking at menus, looking at places they were going to eat out so she could enjoy herself. She's still going to have drinks. She's still going to be away with her family, but it's that rippling out to her kids, seeing her taking care of herself, getting the job
Mm-hmm.
of her dreams, thinking they don't know she's thinking about this, thinking how to support her kids and being aware of how, maybe some of the things she said or done as a human mom,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
because we're all human,
Yep.
has turned up in a way she didn't like. So that ripple effect to our families, our friends, to our workplace, to our communities, to the wider world is really my way of making a dent in the universe, one woman at a time. And it's just, I get
Mm-hmm.
goosebumps because then, they come in and they work with to build a business, or, to get a job, whether it's in education or corporate. And it's just really
Yeah.
exciting. And I know the work you do is the same. And that's why I always come back to trying to keep it simple, because with all these years of experience, there's like so much knowledge. And I don't want to get so clinical or overwhelming. And it's really about simple, effective success habits, one at a time. That is how you build the confidence. That's how you said you tune in, tap in, turn on to you. And then, like, I had to answer a client today in the past. It did take me a minute to just like I like breathed for a minute. It wasn't a bad question. It was a really just like, can I do this question? And I don't run my business that way. And in the
Right.
past, I would have hemmed and hawed for hours of how to. The answer is no. I don't run my business that way, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't do that.
Right.
And so, in because I am confident and took the time to get there, right? You act on things without the confidence because
Yep.
you build confidence doing that. But if I wasn't taking care of myself, I would have, that leads to insecurity, right? It leads to not tuning and tapping and turning on and not having the confidence to say, there was such, it's worth an ask. If you don't ask, you don't get, right?
Yep.
But I
Yep.
don't do that. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for asking. And so it's really becomes easy to even say no or to think about something. That's another tip I'm going to give you is even with your kids, and I still do this with my kids.
Uh-huh.
I say I need to think about it. I'll do
Mm-hmm.
that in business. I'll do that. And if somebody asks me, do you want to go to this party or this thing? Oh, let me get back to you. I need to look at my calendar. I need to think about it.
Yep.
And so it gives you the space to check in, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
kids are bugging you for an answer now, and they know this. But my daughter just did this to me the other day. And I said, do you want an answer now or do you want me to think about it? Because she knows what that means. I'm like, if you want an answer now, the answer is no.
Right.
And she
Yep.
knows if I think about it, usually the answer is yes. Like it usually is.
Mm-hmm.
So I just give that to you as a tool. That was my father-in-law's business partner's go-to answer for anything. So it
Yeah.
allowed you to not say no right away, right? It
Mm-hmm.
allows you to really think about something and allows you to come back and say, you know what? This doesn't really align with me, right? If I'm telling someone to eat something and they say, let me think about it, and they come back and say, I just can't eat that, then I can say, no problem, let's find a substitute. But if,
Right.
and even if they said no, so that's not a good example, but you get the drift. You don't have that way. If you're somebody who's learning to say no to things, whether it's alcohol or parties, and you can still go to parties,
Right.
or it's to doing something that's taking up your time, that's my little nugget for today.
Yeah. And I love that because I think, it's not like, and I think about this in context with my kids, right? Because they're little, right? So when my 5-year-old, she's like, Mommy, can I watch TV, right? Or can I do this thing? And, it's like, well, I don't really want you to do it right now. And it's like, okay, well, let me think about it, right? Because it gives me time to check in with my body and take a breath, right? And approach it from a calm perspective rather than like, you just watched TV all day yesterday. Absolutely not, right? Like, so instead of being overly reactionary and just automatically saying no, now I have the space to say, yep, give me 5 minutes to think about it, right? Like, you're 5, let me have 5 minutes and we'll see, right? And it doesn't totally crush everything she's asking for, right? Like, it gives me a chance to say, okay, we do this now, then maybe we can do that later. Or I can ask her, here's one thing we were going to do, or you can do this. Now you have an opportunity to make a choice, right? And at
Right.
5, like, that is empowering to her, right? But even
Totally.
as an adult, like, if you're thinking about those instances where you're like, oh, should I have the cheeseburger? Should I have the salad? Right. Like, and that's just, two totally different opportunities there. But like, like, okay, how am I going to feel if I eat the greasy McDonald's cheeseburger? Right. Or how am I going to feel if I, have the salad stuff at home? Could I make I don't know, could I fry some chicken? Could I make some air fryer chicken? Right. Like, it gives you the chance to think like, okay, what is going to help me feel best and show up as my best self?
Exactly. And give yourself time to allow the chaos to calm down.
Yeah.
Right. So you can make that decision from a place of clarity. I got a great message yesterday. I have a website for my business coaching and the hosting is up. And I don't know if you are friends with Teresa Tara on Facebook. She is phenomenal. She built a couple websites for me. She did a great, great job. And my last website was not built by her, not because I don't love her, but because my CRM was building sites and it just all syncs together.
Yep.
And so she was asking me what I want to do. And what I loved about the message with my sites, and one of them I still need to edit. It's just like a lot of text and it's so a little overwhelming to me. And since my focus and my passion is in empowering women, to get and stay strong for life, this has been my focus. So we were chatting over the weekend and she said, listen, it's never good to make a decision from a place of pressure. She
Mm-hmm.
said, so, here's what I would recommend. Take your time, think about it. She basically said, I would just renew your hosting so you have some time to think about it. And
Yep.
that way you're not like ditching a site that you really wanted to keep. She's like, I would keep your URLs, keep you the hosting, keep the sites. And she's like, and then if you want to let them go, you didn't make a huge investment. But if you do want to keep them, you didn't let them go. Right. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
so think about what you want to do, take your time. And she's checked in with me a couple of times. So I really it does happen with experience, but I really appreciated that because I didn't have to decide today, right now, because the hosting is only this or that. I didn't feel pressured to make a decision because I know my gut would be like, oh, I'm not doing business coaching, so oh, F it. And
Mm-hmm.
truly, I have places to refer to. It's really good information. It's a phenomenal program. Can I make it a DIY, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
I'm not embedded, but the information is so good and people get results when they do the work. So could it be marketed to those people who like DIY, who are going to,
Right.
implement, and where it's said up front, there is no coaching with this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yep.
can send a question to support or post in the Facebook group, but there's no live coaching. This is the
Mm-hmm.
program. So I
Yep.
really appreciated not being for, and sometimes we do need to make quick decisions.
Right.
But it also models for ourselves, for our clients, for our families, for the other people we're in relationship with. Number one, we respect ourselves enough to think
Yes.
about it because
Yep.
we show people how to treat us. And I never
Mm-hmm.
realized that when I was younger. So that's why I never had time and was always giving because I showed people that I was always available no matter what. It wasn't their
Mm-hmm.
fault. I put that out there. Whatever
Yep.
you need, I'm here. I'm your yes girl. And
Yep.
you can always count on me day or night. Call me, ask me to help you with anything. It's like, right. So I had to
Right.
change. So that's number one. We show people how we want to be treated. We
Mm-hmm.
also empower them to maybe on some level they notice that. And because I know I've done that with people and I've been like, I had to
Right.
have a colleague, I'm like, I want to be Joyce when you grow up. She was so decisive and to the point, and she's like a couple of years older than me. But I was
Yep.
like, he is so great, right? So it empowers other people to get an idea of what it looks like to stand up for themselves. And then it allows us to further explore and say, wait a minute, that felt really good. And wow, I'm getting amazing results. So how can I do more of that?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's once again, keeping it super simple, starting somewhere, starting
Mm-hmm.
by saying, I value myself enough to research what's next for me, right? So am I working on my health and fitness? And it doesn't mean like, am I working on six pack abs? It means, am I working so that I am going to have whatever it is for you, right? I want to be around. I want to see my kids. If
Right.
my son's not having kids, but my daughter, there's hope. If they do have grandkids, I want to be around for that. If they don't, I want to, like I said, die young at an old age. I want to do all the things I want to do. I want to be in relationship. So are you living in a way that you can do that for yourself? Um,
Right.
so are you in Camp A, you have a plan? Or are you in Camp
Mm-hmm.
B, like you're sort of exploring and you're not sure what to do next? Either is fine.
Right.
Um, but decide and look at that so you can empower yourself with something as simple as, drinking water, trying to eliminate some of those added sugars, and just get your mind primed to think in these ways. So really just
Right.
take a moment and say, am I, even if you can't do anything about it now, just having that awareness of where you are with your vehicle and then the driving force, your mind, right? Where
Yep.
are you at so that you can be the best for yourself, be in relationship with yourself, and then be able to reach out to your family, your friends, et cetera, and serve others. But first starting with you and
Right.
learning to be okay with serving yourself first.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's all so good. So what is something challenging? I know we've talked about a lot of different challenges, right, that we kind of are faced with. So what is something challenging that you have overcome in your business? And how did it affect your business, right? Like, so what is some of the chaos that you have worked through? And then how did you kind of find that clarity?
It's so interesting. I've gone through a lot of different chaoses in my business. And so again, you're looking at a moment in time. So no matter, right? So a lot of people think, oh yeah, she's got it all together and she's rocking it and she's got cash flow and she's got client flow and she's passionate about what she does. And I've always been passionate. However, working with people over 40 for most of my life, guess what started to happen? As they were transitioning, they wanted they'd say, Amy, you've left teaching. You have two kids, you've built multiple successful businesses. How did you do this? You should be a business coach. You
Right.
should teach people how to create businesses. So one thing that happened for me for many years is that I kind of morphed into doing it all. And it was
Mm-hmm.
chaotic, right? So now I'm business coaching, I'm doing my, I've come full circle, in fact, of Strong, Beautiful You now. And I still, like I said, have these couple of straggler business clients, because just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it. So
Yep.
some of the chaos that there's so many things that I've had chaos in my business. One, I did close my brick and mortar before COVID. But
Mm-hmm.
part of that, so I took my fitness online, and then I was already bringing business coaching into my coaching because it was life coaching.
Yep.
And so then I made a shift to be marketing business coaching. I built an entire Freedom and Fulfillment Foundations program.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always starting with this piece. You have to, if you're not drinking, if you're not helping your body, you're going to have a really hard time building a business, because
Oh
your
yeah.
emotions are going to be all over the place. You're not going to be able to think clearly, and there's a lot of chaos. So I was trying to combine two things, which, um, people don't, you got to sell them what they want and give them what they need, but it was really chaos. And I wasn't prepared for the number of people. I don't know why, but this is in any industry. I was not prepared for the number of people who want to pay money and
Mm-hmm.
magically think it's magic fairy dust and have the result. And so
Right.
the chaos for me in the business coaching was I was crushed.
Mm-hmm.
Clients who didn't do the work and blamed me. It happens. It happens in fitness. You didn't
Oh
do this. You didn't
yeah.
do whatever. I get it. Like, and I'm feeling, I always want to be compassionate. I made looms yesterday to show people how to access things. Like, I'm always going to help. But
Yep.
chaos was, I was crushed because I pour my heart and soul into my clients, and I was crushed by the results they didn't get because of the work they didn't do.
Right.
But the fact that it was coming back in a way of, it was leaking back to me because you're connected with so many people. And then
Sure.
it was so the chaos I sort of became paralyzed.
Sure.
And was like, oh, how can I go back to just fitness? But I then just shut it all down and was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. F it. I was like, this is my passion. This is what I'm good at. And like you say about checking in, how do you know? Because you're putting stuff out there and people are responding, and it's not so hard. I'm not
Right.
saying I don't need to test. Like I said, I had a post yesterday, crickets. I need
Yeah.
to go in and adjust it. It's just testing, and I'm not. So that used to crush me. So the
Mm-hmm.
chaos to be not knowing what I didn't know. And then also for all of you empaths out there, taking responsibility for other people's shit. You are not
Yeah.
responsible. When somebody pays you, you make very clear boundaries of what you do and what they do. And
Mm-hmm.
although I was very clear with that, I was like crushed. It was crushing, like
Mm-hmm.
depression, crushing. And so that what happened was my business crumbled as a result. And the only reason I can talk about it now is because I'm on the other side, right? But
Right.
I still have kind of goosebumps and a little like catch in my throat. I felt
Yep.
like a huge failure. I felt like,
Sure.
but then even just today, I was like going over with my husband all these women that I worked with and men that got incredible results, that their income like skyrocketed, their energy, like they did embrace the entire program.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I focused too much. So here's a good one. I focused too much on what wasn't working instead
Mm-hmm.
of simply serving the clients in the way that I said I would. Like, I have
Right.
fitness clients that don't make their check-ins, that don't show up. Does
Yep.
that mean that I don't send the emails and the reminders? Of course I do. But I can't
Right.
make them create a Zoom appointment with me. I can't
Right.
make them do their workouts. So I don't know why in the business thing, because it did crush me. I didn't like when people paid for my brick and mortar and didn't come, and then was like, I'm not getting results. And I'd be like, you
Of
haven't been
course.
here once. It's like, I don't really get it. So I
Right.
would say,
Right.
let's make a plan. So the
Yep.
crushing was me taking too much responsibility for the outcomes of my clients. So don't
Mm-hmm.
get me wrong. I don't want to. So what switched for me was revamping my programs, doing more market research, switching back to my passion. And what is true, I'm passionate about helping women. And I do, like you offer to help brainstorm for the podcast. I do offer to do that for all of the things that I know that I'm really good at. But
Right.
for as far as like my own income and supporting myself and my family and my vision, this is where I'm meant to be. So the big
Mm-hmm.
chaos, bring it back around and keep it simple, was that I went somewhere because I was good at it and people were asking for it. And I honestly thought there'd be more money in it, or was
Mm-hmm.
convinced like, oh, people will pay to make money. And people will pay to lose weight because what happens? You feel better, you have more confidence, you have more sex, you make more
Right.
money. Those
Yep.
are all the big three when we're marketing that
Mm-hmm.
people want. So
Yep.
the chaos was following what other people thought I was good at and thought I should do. So, right,
Mm-hmm.
not having the confidence to be like, thank you for your compliment, but this is
Right.
my passion. And that what did that do? Tanked my business. I didn't understand that I still wasn't responsible for their outcome. I felt
Mm-hmm.
responsible for people's entire livelihood, like their
Mm-hmm.
entire like I'm telling you, it was really heavy for me. I don't know
Oh,
what
I
the
bet.
WTF. I have no idea, but I felt so like the weight of the world on my shoulders. So it crushed me. And
Yeah.
it's funny, in our league through that transition, and I know Sydney has seen it, and it caused me to pull back. It caused me
Mm-hmm.
to pull out of things that I was like pull away from connections. It caused a lot of chaos in my life. And so
Sure.
that's number one. Does that make sense? Because I feel like I'm all over the place.
Oh, no, totally. It totally makes sense. And I think, when you start talking about like all of the shoulds, right? Like you should do this, blah blah blah, which is great. And I because I
Okay.
used to do a similar thing where it was someone would tell me I should do XYZ and I'd be like, okay, let's do that, right? Like I'm just gonna go do it. And I don't regret it because now I know what I don't want to do, right? And
Exactly.
there's a part of me that knows that if I would not have done those things, right? Like I have been a photographer for 16 years. I've owned a photography business for 16 years. Had I not tried weddings, had I not tried seniors, babies, families, right? Like all the product photography, food photography, had I not tried those things, I would not know that like I really love connecting with families. I really love taking photos of I'm really good at making little kids smile, right? Like I would not have known that had I not tried all those things on.
Of
Wedding
course.
wedding photography, it's okay. I like it, but it's a long day and it's really exhausting and there's a lot of emotions both high and low on a wedding day that I was not prepared for, right? Like, so, some of had I not tried those things on, I would not have known about it. So I think the trial and error, right? When you're doing these things in business, when you're trying to figure it out, I think, giving things a try, but also being willing to like, okay, I'm going to try this and I'm going to give it X amount of time. If things happen and I like it, okay, I'll keep going with it. But if it starts giving me a lot of chaos or a lot of like nervous energy or whatnot, maybe it's time to move away from that, right? And I've worked through those things like a little quicker as I've gotten older, right? Like in
Yeah.
my yoga studio, there was a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to do these things. We tried to offer all kinds of classes, like every kind of class possible. And I was like, okay, this is not working. And then I pulled it back, right? And doing that allowed me to see, okay, these weren't working. Those times weren't working. This is what is working. Stick with this, right? And being okay with that, I think, you know, knowing that it's okay to experiment, it's okay to try, and also knowing that it's okay to say, this isn't working right now.
Yeah. And to have that clarity. And I think that that was the other piece. And that's a really good point. I think the other point to remember is everything to, especially as we are learning things. And I just want to share this because I see this happen too. So I'm just
Mm-hmm.
being precautionary. Um, I did the business coaching for many years. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying I should have stayed there for that long, but I agree with you. You learn, and I learned a lot, and there's a lot of things I use in my business as a
Mm-hmm.
result of it. Um, However, the other thing I want to point out to people is give it enough time, right? If you
Yes.
actually hate something right from the beginning, like do a little of exploration and it might be something to ditch right away. And it might also just be that you don't know how to do something and you're uncomfortable because as adults, we feel some reason, like you said earlier, we should be able to do it right away, but we're
Yeah.
human. So I just want to caution you to give it enough time. So it
Yep.
doesn't matter whether it's, so when I do work with people, I work in 90-day increments because what I know is 4 weeks isn't enough time. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of emotional stuff. somebody come, my clients typically get results in 3 to 5 days, 10 days max for the beginning. But
Yep.
we don't end there. We want quick wins so that we can keep going. But
Right.
what I know is over 12 weeks, there's a roller coaster ride. And so if
Mm-hmm.
after 4 weeks, you're like, I'm done, I did a month, it didn't work, you're not even giving yourself enough time. So that's again why you want to lean in and say, hey, I'm trying this. This doesn't feel quite right. Could you look at it? And even then, like it's things like messages. People ask me to look at their messages, and I'm like, this is the way I would do it, but this is my personality in the
Right.
DM. So you
Yep.
can try it, but then you need to test it. And I think a lot of people, no matter what their goals are missing that testing phase and then the patience. So it's like,
Right.
yes, if it does not feel right, you feel icky, you got to see, is it something just because I'm uncomfortable because I don't know how to do this yet? Or does this, I always say to people, we're not clubbing baby seals, right? So like
Right.
if you're getting that clubbing baby seals feeling, then 100% run away. But
Right.
if it's,
Yes.
wait a minute, I just don't know how to communicate in the DMs and I feel
Mm-hmm.
icky and weird. Well, let's look at what messages and how your approach is because it's probably you just don't have that skill yet.
Right.
And you need to learn that.
Anyway, so, but this actually leads really well into my next question. So, this is the third question is what is one piece of advice you would tell your younger self? And I know we've given a lot of like amazing little nuggets of advice. So, if there is like one thing that stands out, what would that be?
I would say just breathe.
Yeah.
Calm down, breathe. No amount of worrying and stress is going to change anything. Like that's one thing I say all the time. I'm like, people get mad sometimes when you don't stress. I had a client, I don't know if you remember last year or the year before, Facebook shut down for a couple of
Oh,
days.
yeah.
So I was like, yay. Like I actually was like,
Right.
whatever, it'll come back. It's not going away forever. And it gave me some free time. I had a
Mm-hmm.
client who was really, really angry with me. Why are you so calm? I'm not even joking. She was like, and I said to her, one thing I've learned in my short time on earth is stressing over things like that have never resulted in anything good.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
that's what I would say to
Absolutely.
my younger self is the stress is not worth it. You know, meditate sooner, do yoga sooner, just breathe, right? And
Mm-hmm.
think about how people. So I would just say relax, have patience. To
Right.
my younger self, if I said relax, I'd probably freak out, but I would just say breathe and have patience. Have
Yep.
patience with yourself, have patience with the world, and then be decisive and take action.
Right. Yeah. I think that's so good. That's so good. All right. And then to wrap this up, because yes, my little ones are
They're being so good.
they're being really good. They're being really good. But I know they're ready to go OUTSIDE.
Oh, I'm sure.
Anyway, so the last question I've got for you is if you were a kitchen utensil or gadget, what would you be and why?
I would be a hand blender. And why? Because it's easy, convenient. You can even take it with you, and you can blend anything, right? To any, you can and make delicious ingredients. So we can
Yeah.
take all kinds of things,
Uh-huh.
right, and make this into a beautiful whole. Take the sum of all different parts, just like we do for anything we do in life, and then we can take all the chunkies and the rough edges and make it really nice and smooth.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. So much. Well, Amy, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. This has been so much fun to
So
chat.
fun.
And I totally feel like we could go on for hours, but tell everyone how they can connect with you and any places that you would love to connect with them.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. So I would love to connect with you. I have a number of places if you kind of want to, if you're kind of that person who likes to lurk and check things out, check out my website, fusionfitnessvt.com. I do work with people all over the world, even though it has the Vermont. People are like, are you just in Vermont? No. But check out the website. There's some great info on there. So you can go there on social media. You can find me. I have a phenomenal group called Women Empowering Women. And it's a group together. I say we all rise up and shine together, right? Sometimes we come in and we've got a lot of energy to give and our beacon of light is shining. And other times we come in and we really need to absorb that. So I love that. And as we move through that empowerment process, We rise up and shine together, and together we are more. So you can look me up there. I'll definitely drop the link because there's a couple of women empowering women groups there on Facebook. You can also just follow my personal profile is just, I'll give you the link.
Yeah.
But it's
Yep.
facebook.com/amy.dabrush.lewis. And so,
Awesome.
yeah, that maiden name is going to be a little tough. So I'll drop the link. And then finally, if you're an Instagrammer, you can follow me on Instagram at Amy Lewis Solutions.
Awesome.
So those are, I'm typically on Facebook. I do have a lot of content on Instagram. So I am learning to up my game there. And then the website's just a great place to have there's some great resources there
Perfect.
for you. The habit guide that's right on my site right now, depending on when you're listening to this is April 17th, 2023. So if you're listening that right now, and if you're like listening to it and you don't see it, just message me because I will send it to you if it's no longer the opt-in. But it's a great way for you to get clarity on your goals, no matter what they are, and to even put a plan of action. And my DMs are always open. DMs, text is going to be better than email, but I do check my email once daily. And that I am Amy at fusionfitnessvt.com. But I will be happy to share all those links with you.
Yeah, awesome. And I will definitely link everything below. So if you are in a place where you can't write all this stuff down, the links are below. And that wraps it up for today. So thank you so much, Amy. I had such a great time, and I will talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maggie.
Wow, what a great interview. Thank you so much for showing up here on the Chaos to Clarity podcast. Again, my name is Maggie. I'm so excited to connect with you. You can find all of the information, all of the links below in the show notes for today's interview. And I hope you have the best day ever.